about the Creative Access and McLaren Career Development Bursary. My name's Bhavini, and I am the Career Support Programs Manager for Creative Access. I will be managing the bursary process. I'm part of the process of the promotion and the application process. I guess I'm one of the right people to be here in this session today if you have any burning questions. I also wanted to introduce my colleague Sarah, who is off camera at the moment. She will be fielding any inquiries that you have and any questions. If there are questions that come through that are a bit more sort of general, she will respond to them. Otherwise, they will come through to me if they're a bit more nuanced and dependent on your situation and your bursary funding application. To ask questions, I don't know if you've used the webinar function before, but you can use the Q&A button, which is at the bottom, and we can then see all of the questions through there. As I mentioned before, this will be recorded and will be put onto our YouTube channel via a private link, so you'll be able to access it through there, and we'll make sure to send it through once the session's done. I'm going to go through the kind of ins and outs of the bursary. Also, if you haven't come into contact with Creative Access before, a bit about what we do. We'll then talk about like logistical information about the bursary, what we'll fund, etc. And we'll also talk a bit about what we're looking for in an application. So that would be super useful for you as well. So just to talk about Creative Access and who we are a social enterprise working to open up career access and help people thrive in the creative industries. We've been running since 2012, and initially we were just offering internships, but now we've kind of branched out into various support areas such as training, employer training, and career support throughout the whole career cycle. So we have two kind of parts to our business. We have the access part, so we're helping people get into the industry, and then the thrive part, which is helping people when they are in the industry. So just to talk about access and what that includes, so we work to improve knowledge and access to the creative economy via outreach events, resources, and recruitment. Our recruitment team is best known for recruiting individuals to organizations via positive action programs. We also host a specialist job board where the opportunity for the career development bursary is hosted. So we host the jobs board for candidates from underrepresented backgrounds and inclusive employers who want to attract the best talent. And we run multiple mentoring programs helping to demystify and provide access routes to the sector. So just to talk a bit about the Thrive section now. So once individuals enter the workplace, we help them to thrive at every step, from career progression to maximizing influence. We deliver first-class training to help individuals and employers remove the visible and invisible barriers to inclusion in the workplace, from diversity, equity, and belonging to neurodiversity, mental health, and well-being. We support organizations to create and embed DEI strategies and values via consultancy, one-to-one executive coaching, and leadership training. And most importantly, and why we're here today, we run a career development bursary to aid progression within our community. So moving on to talk about the career development bursary and how it works. So you can apply for a bursary of any amount up to £1,000 to help you get to the next stage of your creative career. We're really pleased to be working with McLaren Racing for the third year in a row to run this bursary. And the view of the bursary is to help with creative career development, so that's anyone working within the creative industries or within a creative role. Applications are made via the Creative Access website, and at the end of the presentation, we'll show you how to find the opportunity if you haven't seen it before. And the deadline for the applications is 9 AM on Wednesday, the 8th of November, which is just under a month away now. So in terms of what we'll fund, it's quite broad, but I'll talk about them individually. So first off, we have training courses, including driving lessons. We have equipment or software purchase at an appropriate specification for your career stage. So that does include equipment such as laptops, but also may include technical equipment such as a camera, or one previous applicant had applied for a jewelry maker. And so it's as broad as possible in terms of helping you with your career development, depending on what you're looking for. Contribution to living costs whilst working or training, for example, travel and accommodation. If, for example, you're shadowing a theatre director and you need fees for your train travel, we'd be happy to cover that. Disability access support, care costs, or bespoke coaching or mentoring. So that is anywhere between care costs if you have access requirements and require someone to assist you with writing, for example, a draft of a new play that you're looking to create. Bespoke coaching or mentoring is if you are looking to shadow someone and get a mentoring opportunity for them. And coaching is a specific service where you can get one-to-one coaching, and that tends to be at a fee as well. And then the final one is equipment or venue hire, relocation costs, for example, deposit or rent support. So this is slightly different to the living costs. So we have, if you were to get a studio and you need assistance with studio rent, we can cover that. Relocation costs, even to get things if you are looking to move to another city, for example, to have access to more creative jobs. And then equipment hire is if you need any short-term hire of equipment for your application. Just to talk about what we cannot fund, so that includes academic courses, any debts that are outstanding for you, costs that should be paid for by an employer, for example, salary or training fees that are within a training budget of your organization that you're working at, or expenses for activities that have already occurred. We'll talk a bit about the funding period and when that starts from and to, and any costs outside of that funding period will not be considered. Just to go on to our eligibility, so please only apply if you are over the age of 18 and eligible to work in the UK. Just to say that we can accept applications from those still in education or training. You identify as being from an underrepresented group in the creative industries. So for creative access, underrepresented means anyone from a Black, Asian, or ethnically diverse background, anyone from a lower socio-economic background, or anyone that identifies as disabled or neurodivergent. And you're also able to demonstrate financial need. So please do not apply if you are not in need of financial relief or support or have savings of over £5,000. This bursary is to help people who do not have the financial means to progress their career. So we want to prioritise applications for people who actually need the support. As mentioned, in terms of the funding period, you should be able to use the funding after early January 2024 when the funding period begins, and by the 31st of August 2024 when the funding period ends. So that's about 9 months of funding, of a funding window to be able to spend the funds of your bursary. So just moving on to the personal statement. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the application already, we do ask you in the total of 500 words to provide a personal statement as to why you need the funding at this stage. And we'll talk a bit about what we ask for in the application. So we need you to provide a short overview of your career to date and aspirations for the future. We want to get an understanding of where you're at and what you do, what you would use the bursary for, and how the funded items would support you in your career development, why you need financial support at this time, what are the financial barriers impacting you at the moment, what your next steps would be if you secured our financial support. What would, when would you be spending the bursary? When would you be taking on the itemized costs that you would be applying for? For example, if you do want coaching, when would you be coaching? When would you be purchasing the coaching by? Who will you be approaching for the coaching? We do need that information. So now to just talk about what we're looking for in an application. So just to give you a sense, last year we received around 589 applications. So the assessment criteria for us is quite tough. And just to say that your application would be read by 2 members of the Creative Access team to ensure that there is a fairness and equity in our assessment process. So here are a few things that we're looking for in an application. The first thing is very technical. It's eligibility in line with our eligibility requirements that I spoke about before. We also want to know whether this is for your long-term career development or whether this is for a singular project. Because we're focusing on career development, if this is for something that is self-contained and not contributing to the long-term plans for you, then we will not fund your bursary. Is this the right step? So in your personal statement, you'll get an opportunity to provide an overview of your career, why you're applying for this bursary and what you're applying for. So in that, we will be considering if this is the right step for you. If, for example, you're looking to get into film directing and you require driving lessons so you're able to get to discrete locations, then that's perfectly acceptable because we understand that it is important to your career development that you need driving lessons. Examples and evidence. So we will need examples of what you're applying for, why you're applying for it, and why you have decided to take this step for your career progression. Evidence means that you've done a significant amount of research and it is well considered. A clear timeline of when the bursary will be spent. So as I mentioned, we'd need to understand when you'll be making the relevant purchases, when you hope to spend the purchases by, and how this, just a really clear picture of what this looks like for you. And just connecting this to the previous point, itemized costs, research, links, and there is space in the application if you want to provide a link to a budget. If you have a lot of itemized costs, we'd recommend that you include a link to a Google Drive, like a spreadsheet or something like that. Just so you have this in mind, we are a small team and we will be reading a lot of applications. And so we do want as much information as possible to avoid us having to go and research on the internet for things that you may have mentioned. If you provide as much information, that is super helpful for us. So now onto the timeline between now and the funding period. So you'll be able to apply for the bursary until the 8th of November, which is our deadline. Just go to the next point. The bursary assessment will take place between November and December, and that includes, as I mentioned, having your application read by 2 members of the Creative Access team. And then we'll go into a moderation process where we will look at the profile of the people that we're funding and considering various factors such as sector, making sure we have good representation of the different sectors within the creative industries, protected characteristics, given that this is for people from underrepresented backgrounds, regions, because we are funding people across the country, and career level, because we're funding people at loads of different career levels. We just want to make sure that we are being equitable as much as possible in our assessment process, which is why it will take a significant amount of time to do this. We'll then communicate the outcome of the bursary in December. We aren't committing ourselves to a date just because it's hard. We want to manage your expectations. And so we are saying December because it could be the beginning of the month or the middle of the month, but it will be before Christmas. The funding period will then begin from January 2024 and it will finish in August 2024. I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about what the funding period looks like. So that takes place between December 2023 when you receive your bursary agreement. So just starting a little bit before so you can understand the full context right through to the end. So in December, if you are successful, you'll receive your bursary agreement via email. We will then require you to return the bursary agreement with a signature. Digital signature is fine. And we'll then go through a few checks, such as checking and verifying your bank details, going through this process to make sure you are clear on what the next few months looks like. We'll then, after that process, send you 80% of the funding, and then the funding period will begin for you. We will then require you to spend all of your bursary, so that's 100% of the bursary amount. And then we'll need you to submit receipts for all of your expenses. The reason why we send you 80%, but we require you to spend the entire amount of your bursary is because we'll need to receive those receipts in order to see evidence of your expenditure. That is for our audit purposes to make sure that we've got a clear record of your expenses, because we are essentially releasing quite a lot of money to various applicants. So we want to make sure that we have an audit trail of your expenditure. And once we receive all of those receipts from you and evidence of expenditure, we will reimburse the remaining 20% of your bursary within 10 working days. We say 10 working days because that allows us and our finance team to go through the correct procedures of approving this expense and may come back to you with questions in case we need to follow up with anything, but it will most likely be less than 10 working days, but we just say that to allow enough time for us to do the necessary checks that we need to. And then the funding period will end in August 2024. Just to say also, if you are making a one-off purchase that is not impacted by timescale, for example, a laptop, we may give you an earlier deadline to submit your expenses. It may be that when we send you 80% of the funding, you'd be able to buy your laptop that same day. But if, for example, it's for coaching sessions which are taking place over 6 months and you're paying that via direct debit, we will probably give you the whole funding period. We'll make sure that at any point you are able to ask the questions that you need to, and want to make sure that we are supporting you the best possible way. We do really, really recommend, because there are times, and I have done this myself, when you receive an agreement and you don't tend to read all of it, we just want to make sure that everything is super clear and we are entering this funding partnership on clear terms. So to apply, you'll need to go to the opportunities board on the Creative Access website. And once you've logged in, you can type in Career Development Bursary into our opportunities board on our search engine. And then you'll be able to find the opportunity and click Apply. This will then take you to a new window and you'll be able to see the application there. There's some guidance on how long the application takes, and also on the opportunity itself, there is an easy read version of all of this information, so you're able to read it if you require an easy read version as well. In terms of support from the Creative Access team, we're here to help and we're here to answer any questions that you need. So you can reach us on programs@creativeaccess.org and my email address, which is bavini@creativeaccess.org.uk. You can ask any questions, and also we do provide access support for applications where possible. So if you need to submit your application in an alternative format, for example, a voice or a video recording, or if you require an alternative format of the application, like a Word version or high contrast, we'd be more than happy to help. Great. So